the way we look at stuttering has a big effect on how we're going to handle it. This goes for both people who stutter and clinicians. So today I want to discuss with you different ways of looking at stuttering and what the pros and cons are of each way. The first two are very common ways of looking at it. One is fix it. Stuttering is a problem. The goal of a person who stutters should be to be fluent. That is the goal, and we have to get there at all costs. You might have to do something that is very unnatural, like speak very slowly, speak in a monotone, take a very deep breath, some kind of breath that's not usual. Pause after every word or so, and there's a whole range of other techniques. The person who stutters feels that they have to do these techniques. Doesn't matter if they enjoy speaking or don't enjoy speaking, but they have to do these techniques, and the goal is to do them all of the time. A clinician who believes in the let's fix it perspective would give the client drills, have them feel that they should be doing it, just do it, and perhaps if you don't do it, you're just not practicing enough. Now, the other way of looking at stuttering is that it is a hereditary neurological problem. It can't be fixed. There's nothing you can do about it, so learn to accept it. People who stutter try to build an identity as a person who stutters, and they might join self-help groups that would help them to accept fully that they do stutter. The clinician would work on things like desensitization and feeling good about yourself. In this case, it is very important to keep the stuttering, and people who follow this "there's nothing you can do about it" perspective will not even hear of anything that might change their fluency, because to be fluent is not to be them. So they don't want to know of anything, and they're not going to do anything to make it different. Then there is another way of looking at it. And you all know that this is my way of looking at it. And this is that stuttering is just the natural result of a speech production system that is very dynamic. And at the moment when you are having difficulty speaking, it is because your system isn't functioning in the natural way. Now, it is obvious that people who stutter do not stutter all the time. So that is truth and proof that the system is dynamic. Can it be changed? I believe that there is a hereditary and neurological component, but we know about brain plasticity. And we know that we don't have to do the same thing all of the time. The goal of this therapy or this perspective is not perfect fluency at all costs. It's not working hard to be fluent, the opposite. It's giving up the effort. It's doing something in a different way And the person who stutters, who follows this perspective, really wants to learn, what is the system all about? How does it work? What can I change? Are there thoughts, behaviors that I'm doing inadvertently that is causing the speech to have blocks in it, or repetitions or whatever? Then the clinician who follows this perspective wants the client to become a joyful communicator, to not have to work hard to speak. The end goal is for speaking to be a common everyday activity, something you don't even think about, something that doesn't take up your worry, your care, your concern. And this is possible. Now, what are the pros and cons of each of these perspectives? The fix-it perspective has you do something different. I've seen cases where the doing something different has actually helped people to give up the controls. It doesn't happen as a direct result, but inadvertently that happens. And I'll never forget when I used to do fluency shaping, I had a client who started speaking beautifully, and he said, "But Barbara, I'm not doing anything you told me to do." Well, you might not be doing it, but what you're doing is really good. And it took me many years to learn what he was probably doing at that time, which was giving up all of the control. So some people who go to fix-it therapies do get to a good place, but too often they also feel guilty if they're not using it all of the time, and they also feel that they might have failed because they didn't practice enough, they didn't do enough, and they haven't changed their mindset. So they're still in that place of stuttering. Now, the people who say that there's nothing that can be done, they are, maybe if they are able to really accept it, that's wonderful. But I've seen too many people who feel guilty because maybe they're doing something and they're not stuttering enough. And maybe they're not being true to the agenda that they have begun to follow. Sometimes they are missing out because their speech could be much easier for them to produce, but they really are not allowing themselves to even look in that direction. So those who do feel desensitized, those who do go into speaking situations, whatever they may be, and really don't care, well, great. Then it is a really successful perspective. But it's not very easy to get to that place. And not a lot of people do get to that place. And truthfully, the ones who do probably give up the control, so they're getting to a place where they have made change anyway. Now, in the speech processing perspective, I guess you could call it that or the systems perspective, that I really believe is the most beneficial. I've got to say that the con is that it is not easy to make all the changes in your mindset. It really isn't. It's not easy to see that you can give up control, and it does require some practice. However, once you get there, the experience of speaking is so comfortable, so pleasant, and it allows you to really express your thoughts, something that is not easy to do when you are not using the natural process, even if you're not thinking of the words. So I think this is a good way to go, and it really encompasses a lot of the desensitization and the acceptance that stuttering is not a bad thing. Stuttering isn't a bad thing. And in the way I look at it, I'm only there to help you to be a more comfortable, happier communicator. That's really the purpose of going to that kind of therapy. So each one has its pros, each one has its cons, and each one of you who stutter have to decide what's best for you. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe, to share. This, I think, would be a good video to share with your stuttering groups, and maybe even have a discussion about it, which would really be beneficial and open up the conversation.